Part 2 Appendix. Original Patton, the Invasion Speech to the Third Army. Patton's speech to the men of the Third Army prior to the D-Day landings was the greatest motivational speech of the war, and perhaps of all time, exceeding, in its morale-boosting effect if not as literature, the words Shakespeare gave King Henry V at Agincourt. What has become known as the speech was delivered at least 4 and possibly 6 times in late May and early June 1944. Some historians have named it Patton's Eve of D-Day speech, but that was not so. He had no prior knowledge of the invasion date, and in any case his Third Army was not part of the June 6 invasion force. On each occasion, Patton arrived in a black Mercedes driven by Sergeant Mims. He wore his helmet, dark green uniform, highly polished cavalry boots, and the deep-set scowl that he called his war face. He carried a riding crop that he occasionally snapped for effect while he spoke. Patton addressed the fears that were in the mind of every man. Most were inexperienced troops. His task, using language alone, was to make them fight like hardened veterans. A few of the officers balked at the vulgarity, but it was the language of the barracks, and the men loved it. Some, however, felt that his words were too strong for their folks back home. One man changed every occurrence of bullshit to baloney, while another rendered, "We're going to hold on to him," the enemy, "by his balls," as, "We're going to hold on to him by the nose." Patton's nephew queried his overuse of obscene language. The general replied, "When I want my men to remember something important, to make it really stick, I give it to them double dirty. It may not sound nice to some bunch of little old ladies at an afternoon tea party, but it helps my soldiers to remember. You can't run an army without profanity, and it has to be eloquent profanity. An army without profanity couldn't fight its way out of a piss-soaked paper bag." The speech, made without notes, was substantially the same at each delivery, although the order of its several parts varied. A number of the troops wrote it down from memory, and their versions differ slightly in the precise words used, while agreeing on the content and tone. This reconstruction is derived from the written recollections of Gilbert R. Cook, Cook Papers, Dwight D. Eisenhower Library, Abilene, Kansas; Hobart R. Gay, Hobart R. Gay Papers, United States Military Academy Library, West Point; Lynn A. Hopp, Patton Papers, Library of Congress, Washington, D.C.; Colonel Theodore J. Crocus, Patton Papers; Lieutenant Joshua Minor, Oral History Research Office, Columbia University Library, New York City; and Neil H. Shreve, 7th Corps 3rd Army Unit History, U.S. National Archives, Washington, D.C. Be seated. Men, all this stuff you hear about America not wanting to fight, wanting to stay out of the war, is a lot of bullshit. Americans love to fight. All real Americans love the sting and clash of battle. When you were kids, you all admired the champion marble shooter, the fastest runner, the big league ball players, and the toughest boxers. Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time. That's why Americans have never lost and never will lose a war. The very thought of losing is hateful to Americans. Battle is the most significant competition in which a man can indulge. It brings out all that is best, and it removes all that is base. You are not all going to die. Only 2% of you right here today would be killed in a major battle. Every man is scared in his first action. If he says he's not, he's a goddamn liar. But the real hero is the man who fights even though he's scared. Some men get over their fright in a minute under fire. Some take an hour, and for some it takes days. But the real man never lets his fear of death overpower his honor, his sense of duty to his country, and his innate manhood. All through your Army career, you men have bitched about what you call this chicken shit drilling. That is all for a purpose, to ensure instant obedience to orders and to create constant alertness. This must be bred into every soldier. I don't give a fuck for a man who is not always on his toes. But the drilling has made veterans of all you men. You are ready. A man has to be alert all the time if he expects to keep on breathing. If not, some German son of a bitch will sneak up behind him and beat him to death with a sock full of shit. There are 400 neatly marked graves in Sicily, all because one man went to sleep on the job. But they are German graves because we caught the bastard asleep before his officer did. An army is a team. It lives, eats, sleeps, and fights as a team. This individual hero stuff is bullshit. The bilious bastards who write that stuff for the Saturday Evening Post don't know any more about real battle than they do about fucking. And we have the best team. We have the finest food and equipment, the best spirit, and the best men in the world. Why, by God, I actually pity these poor bastards we're going up against. All the real heroes are not storybook combat fighters. Every single man in the army plays a vital role. So don't ever let up. Don't ever think that your job is unimportant. What if every truck driver decided that he didn't like the whine of the shells and turned yellow and jumped headlong into a ditch? The cowardly bastard could say to himself, hell, they won't miss me, just one man in thousands. What if every man said that? Where in the hell would we be then? No, thank God Americans don't say that. Every man does his job. Every job is important. The ordnance men are needed to supply the guns. The quartermaster is needed to bring up the food and clothes for us, because where we are going, there isn't a hell of a lot to steal. Every last damn man in the mess hall, even the one who boils the water to keep us from getting the GI shits, has a job to do. Each man must think not only of himself, but think of his buddy fighting alongside him. We don't want yellow cowards in the army. They should be killed off like flies. If not, they'll go back home after the war goddamn cowards and breed more cowards. The brave men will breed more brave men. Kill off the goddamn cowards and we'll have a nation of brave men. One of the bravest men I saw in the African campaign was on a telegraph pole in the midst of furious fire while we were moving toward Tunis. I stopped and asked him what the hell he was doing up there. He answered, "Fixing the wires, sir." "Isn't it a little unhealthy up there right now?" I asked. "Yes, sir, but this goddamn wire's got to be fixed." I asked, "Don't those planes strafing the road bother you?" And he answered, "No, sir, but you sure as hell do." Now there was a real soldier, a real man, a man who devoted all he had to his duty, no matter how great the odds, no matter how seemingly insignificant his duty appeared at the time. And you should have seen the trucks on the road to Gabay. Those drivers were magnificent. All day and all night they crawled along those son-of-a-bitch roads, never stopping, never deviating from their course, with shells bursting all around them. Many of the men drove for over 40 consecutive hours. We got through on good old American guts. These were not combat men, but they were soldiers with a job to do. They were part of a team. Without them, the fight would have been lost. Sure, we all want to go home. We want to get this war over with, but you can't win a war lying down. The quickest way to get it over with is to get the bastards who started it. We want to get the hell over there and clean the goddamn thing up, and then get at those purple-pissing Japs. The quicker they're whipped, the quicker we go home. The shortest way home is through Berlin and Tokyo. So keep moving, and when we get to Berlin, I am personally going to shoot that paper-hanging son of a bitch Hitler. When a man is lying in a shell hole, if he just stays there all day, a Boche will get him eventually. The hell with that. My men don't dig foxholes. Foxholes only slow up an offensive. Keep moving. We'll win this war, but we'll win it only by fighting and by showing the Germans we've got more guts than they have, or ever will have. We're not just going to shoot the bastards, we're going to rip out their living goddamn guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy Hun cocksuckers by the bushel fucking basket. Some of you men are wondering whether or not you'll chicken out under fire. Don't worry about it. I can assure you that you'll all do your duty. War's a bloody business, a killing business. The Nazis are the enemy. Wade into them. Spill their blood or they will spill yours. Shoot them in the guts. Rip open their belly. When shells are hitting all around you and you wipe the dirt from your face and realize that it's not dirt, it's the blood and guts of what was once your best friend, you'll know what to do. I don't want any messages saying, I'm holding my position. We're not holding a goddamn thing. We're advancing constantly, and we're not interested in holding on to anything except the enemy's balls. We're going to hold on to him by his balls, and we're going to kick him in the ass, twist his balls, and kick the living shit out of him all the time. Our plan of operation is to advance and to keep on advancing. We're going to go through the enemy like shit through a tin horn. There will be some complaints that we are pushing our people too hard. I don't give a damn about such complaints. I believe that an ounce of sweat will save a gallon of blood. The harder we push, the more Germans we kill. The more Germans we kill, the fewer of our men will be killed. Pushing hard means fewer casualties. I want you all to remember that. My men don't surrender. I don't want to hear of any soldier under my command being captured unless he is hit. Even if you're hit, you can still fight. That's not just bullshit either. I want men like the lieutenant in Libya, who, with a Luger against his chest, swept aside the gun with his hand, jerked his helmet off with the other, and busted hell out of the Boche with the helmet. Then he picked up the gun and killed another German. All the time, this man had a bullet through his lung. That's a man for you. Don't forget, you don't know I'm here at all. No word of that fact is to be mentioned in any letters. The world is not supposed to know what the hell they did with me. I'm not supposed to be commanding this army. I'm not even supposed to be in England. Let the first bastards to find out be the goddamn Germans. Someday, I want them to rise up on their piss-soaked hind legs and howl, "Ach, it's the goddamn Third Army and that son of a bitch Patton again." Then there's one thing you men will be able to say when this war is over and you get back home. 30 years from now, when you're sitting by your fireside with your grandson on your knee and he asks, "What did you do in the Great World War II?" you won't have to cough and say, "Well, your granddaddy shoveled shit in Louisiana." No, sir. You can look him straight in the eye and say, "Son, your granddaddy rode with the Great Third Army and a son of a goddamned bitch named George Patton." All right, you sons of bitches, you know how I feel. I'll be proud to lead you wonderful guys into battle anywhere, anytime. That's all.